Esther Loopstra.
Hello.
Hi. Welcome,
Hi.
welcome. You are an incredible Seattle local artist here. Everyone knows who you are when you walk around Pioneer Street or downtown. They'll wave to you from afar and up close.
Oh,
Thank you for joining me in talking about these really deep conversations because just kind of like table set as well. The folks who are on my network, they're kind of a lot of different kinds of people. But mainly the type of people who I'm usually connected with and the people who I resonate a lot with are high performers. They are high performers. They are high achievers. They work a lot because they want to. They work a lot because they love the idea of launching something. They feel really proud of the work that they put out into the world. And most importantly, they feel like it's so rewarding because they understand the value of delayed gratification. And also not really caring where the idea came from, but working together as collaborators, like across departments and whatever, just to get it not just done, but like valuing each other's opinions and their roles and what they bring to the table in order to make something really great together. So I wanted to hit on a few bullet points together with you because as it is Friday, it is Friday. And as we go into the weekend and into the new week, we have holidays coming up as well. And holidays can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. It can mean a really stressful time for many different reasons. And if you're doing really well from a corporate standpoint in the market and you're hitting really hard in campaigns and stuff, it's kind of hard because you're doing a lot, you're juggling a lot, and there are a lot of fires happening every day. And so I want to kind of explore a conversation with you with your subject matter expertise in psychology and how you an incredible speaker and a coach in talking a lot about the flow state and how to really solve problems very creatively. So can you speak a little bit to that side of your background?
yeah. So I am I'm an artist, but I'm also a creative coach. So I have worked in education. So before I got my degree in my BFA in art, I went to school for psychology. So I've always been really interested in it. And then I was an educator. I've been an educator for over 10 years, teaching at a college level, art and design. And now I'm a creative coach and a speaker. So I talk about the power of creativity and innovation, and a lot about the flow state and the neuroscience behind creativity. So I'm really obsessed. My clients are also high achievers, and they usually come to me when what they've been doing isn't working anymore, and
Mm-hmm.
they really want to find the thing that they're passionate about, and they've been using kind of the way that we work in, in a corporate setting, or maybe even like, trying to do it on their own with their own idea, but it's not working. So I show them how to think a little bit differently, and with my my teaching that I've come up with, that I'm writing co-writing a book about, and our podcast is about that too. So yeah, it's called the flow method of creativity. So that's a little bit about my expertise
I
around
love it.
creativity and neuroscience and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So let's double click on what you're talking about that rut. Because, with high achievers every single day, you kind of wake up and you're not sure if you should be waking up to feel important, or you should feel inspired, or you should feel happy kind of thing. But especially if you're leaders and you have really big responsibilities, you're leading by example. And, one day you can be really awesome, and then another day you could be seen as like, what is this person talking about? Or I'm not really sure, or that wasn't really communicated very well, and how to be consistent when everything is going, sideways, really. And especially in the startup world and even in high corporate, high stakes corporate environments, you have people asking you for so many things. They're demanding so many things, their wants, their needs, whether that's professionally and also at home. And how to kind of, what is your advisory when to kind of have your own agency? How do you help them to not necessarily like a factory reset per se, but how do you help them stand guard at their minds when everything is in chaos, but they have to perform and they
Yeah.
want to too?
Yeah. I think the most important thing that I come back to and that we really need to understand is no matter whether we like it or not, there is a creative process. And that's what I teach. And um and it's just the creative process, it's how we create anything, right? And so it's the same as the seasons of the earth, right? Or it's the same at solving a problem. And it's winter season, spring season, summer, and fall, right? So fall is the most productive, like when you really feel like you're going, and you're getting a lot of things done. Winter is sort of after that, right? When you have to pause and really do what seems like nothing, which really hard to comprehend for people who are high achievers and feel like they should always be going.
Mm-hmm.
Like it or not, this is the creative process. This is how we must approach our business, our ideas, our ideation. And where ideation comes into it is like spring, and summer, right? And then you really honing it. I think of it as like a funnel where you're honing in. So at the end of that, whether it's a day of the creative cycle or your whole entire project that takes 5 years, we're constantly coming in and out of this cycle. So first I would say, are you giving yourself time to pause, for the pause? Because your brain literally needs to, like you said, rewire, like it needs the pause, right? To be able to not just rest, right? If you think about what's happening in winter, all of the nutrients are being redistributed into the soil and it's giving you energy, like you're preparing, right, for that energy. And in your brain, when we rest, we can get into a state where our subconscious literally can find the ideas for us, right? So we can pause and we get into another sort of brainwave state. And it's like in the shower where you can come up, it's like effortless, right?
Yes.
And so what I would remind people of, first of all, is like these cycles, you're not going to be in fall all the time. You're just not. Like you're not going to be able to
just
go.
For people to know, it's not like literally fall. It's like
Right,
these
exactly.
are the seasons
Yeah.
of you, the state of season that you're in. And that could be one
Any
day, that could be a
creative
week,
project.
that's a
Yeah.
month, whatever it is, whatever your
Yeah.
timeline is. It's just like, what is that? and a lot of people who I think, especially with loneliness and isolation or remote working as well, you don't really know where people really are. And so the
Mm-hmm.
last time you saw them, they could have been in a completely different season. And having that human connection, I think, to check in and being like, hey, how can I support you? And like, where are you right now? Is also another
Mm-hmm.
reciprocal way of being able to support your friend who is trying to achieve whatever in their life, right? Especially if you know that they are a
Yeah.
complete high performer.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing I would say is like, about flow. So there's different aspects of the flow state, right? So everybody knows about the flow state, like when you kind of get in a groove, right? You get in this flow where you really are enjoying it and you really are high, like you are performing at the peak in the flow
Yeah.
state. And so there's certain principles, just like there's certain principles of these seasons of a creative project, there's certain principles of flow as well. Like there's certain ways that we can get into flow. So, for instance, starting off with your motivation, right? Your why, right? Your intrinsic motivation instead of being motivated from something that's outside, like I want to make $1 million, like that's cool, but like you were saying, most high performers, they want that intrinsic, they want to have that like natural passion that comes from like, why am I
Yeah, I
doing
want to
this,
leap out from the freaking bed and be like, hey, I'm choosing
Yeah,
my
yeah.
adventure today. I want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Yeah.
reward is at the end, whether you're, making, whatever it is, or you raise funding or you lost weight, like it doesn't like that's the outcome of it. But the
Right.
energy, like I think we like really feed off the energy of that process and we don't really talk about it so much. And then
Yeah.
when it gets back to that rut part of like, okay, wait, I was able to do so much flow. And then I don't think it's burnout. I think it's more about how to have a controlled environment in your mind that because the variables is everyone around you. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the situations that happen. Yeah. Yeah.
You're like shit. Well, and the only thing you can really control is yourself, how you
Mm-hmm.
react, how you deal with yourself, and how you show up for other people. So then if you have and so that I kind of, that's how I kind of use the word of like controlled environment. So if you're a container within your own, and you're like, okay, if everyone else is the variable or everything else is the variable, how can I be at flow state? Like, what is some tangible advisory that you can provide of like, to make sure that they declutter. So even so, like for example, a lot of these business folks, these business executives, they might have to be away for a really long time from their family, for example, because they are just traveling so many places, whether for industry events, for a lot of time. A lot of weeks at a time, or they're just kind of all over the place, or whether that's physically or not. And so, but if they're able to kind of have control of their routine of like, okay, this is what I need to thrive, and whatever shit is thrown at me, it's okay. I got this. I can handle it.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are certain things that can get you into flow, the flow state. And so for me, when I found out about the flow state, I was like, I want to live in the flow state like every day, all day. How do I do that? So I gave a talk about how to do that at Creative Mornings. And so there's what we call flow triggers. And one of the most important things that as far as like personal, is called deep embodiment. And so that means being in your body, coming back to your body. So when we're in the flow state, you notice that like time kind of like either stands still or goes fast, and you're kind of like really present, right? And
Yeah.
so, how do I get myself really present, right? And from there, that will allow you to get into the flow state. So whatever that is for you, whether it's having a routine, in the morning, or, exercise, what is it that brings you into that flow state, or that deep embodiment? And, I think like what goes along with this is like boundaries, like what are my boundaries? And I'm always one thing I like to ask people is like, what do you need? What do you want? And how do you want to feel? Like every day, every week, and for your life, like what do you need today, to make you feel like you're talking about, like, even if I'm traveling, and what do I want? How do I want to feel today? So I ask myself that every day, like how, because I think a lot of times we don't realize that we get to choose. We really do.
Yeah.
We
It's
think
on
that
you to be able to change that environment, to change that energy, to be able to like, oh no, I'm going to show up this way. Even to yourself, right? And I think it's that follow through. Are you going to do what you said you're going to do? Because even for investors, that's what they're really looking for, founders and entrepreneurs, is like, can you even, so like thinking like milestones and like product roadmaps and what they're saying when they're pitching and stuff like that. It's like, are you, what you put on paper and what you're selling to me, are you able to hit that milestone? And if not, why? And are you able to communicate that along the way? And what you're saying is really interesting, because the flow state of being able to feel calm, at peace, and being able to be like, okay, I want to feel this sense of agency, that I can control the adventure of my today. And that if I am, if I think of it as like different levels, it's like, if I need more support in this way, how do I communicate that? How do I practice communicating, not only identifying, oh, this is what I need, want, and feel, but the next step of like, what do I need from my team?
Yeah.
What do I need? Not just at work, but at home,
Yeah. And that leads into kind of another flow trigger, which is feedback. So, if you're working on a product, creating a product, you want to get feedback at certain times in the project, right? So you want to know your goal. So having a goal is also like a flow trigger, having a clear goal, right? And then feedback. So you're constantly getting feedback from, let me step back. So if you have a project, you want to create it, you throughout like maybe you create a beta version, you share it, and then you get feedback. So then you know what to change, right? So this happens all day, every day with us too. And I think about this as I'm trying every day to be in flow, is I'm getting feedback from the outside, right? So like you said, you can't control everything in your life, right? So maybe I had a plan that I was going to launch this today, but like life happens, right?
Yeah.
So you're getting feedback, right? So what do you do when something in your business isn't going the way you plan? You pivot.
Yes.
You pivot, right? So so I'm kind of talking about two things simultaneously. I'm talking about your everyday, which I love doing.
I love it. Yeah.
And then I'm talking about like your business. So, and how do we create flow, right? So then every day I will be like, okay, well, what I really want to do today is finish this painting. And then, I get all this feedback from like something goes wrong, my car doesn't work, blah, 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 blah. So then I think, okay, I step back, I come back into myself, and I think, how can I pivot? Well, what can I do today based on my needs and wants and how I want to feel? Okay, well, I can work on a color palette at home and like finalize this, or maybe if it's the project that you're pushing in your business,
taking one step at a time. Literally.
Step. Yep. And so how can I pivot, right? And if I get some bad feedback, what is the next thing that I need to do to pivot? And I mean, as business owners, we're constantly, like if anybody knows this, business owners know this, right? About pivoting. but we can also do it in our life, like every day. And I think what I see so often is people who are high achievers, because they know they can do, we know we can get shit done, right? Like we know, but what they do is they hold on to an idea so tightly that like it creates this resistance and friction. Whereas,
ooh, double click on that. Because pivoting is so hard to talk about.
Is it?
Yeah, like there's so many different definitions about it going around in business, because pivoting could mean like you have this really big goal and that's why you were invested in the first place. And it could be like a very worst case scenario kind of pivot kind of thing. Like, okay, this industry is not working. We have to do this. We found out and we learned because we launched the beta and we have to go this way kind of thing. We learned from that. Or it could mean, it could be the people side of it. That didn't work out. That I'm not great at hiring kind of thing. Okay, I learned from that mistake, you know, or I learned that lesson that, you know, I need to be better in judgment for XYZ kind of thing. Or if it's not people and it's not the industry, it might be the product. It's like, you know, like, oh crap, you know, maybe like what the heck did we just build here kind of thing? And did we actually build it to what the goal that we first set off of? Did we complete that first, even to be able to do the second? Or, you know, be like, what, like, I think documenting those pivots and being like, how much was that emotional, rational, and logical? Because like, there's so many people involved, which is like chefs and different cooks. And so, you know, how to have your own agency, because the most important person in the startup is the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And so it's just like how for them to feel like they can take charge, and every single day you can pivot. But like, you don't want to pivot so much all the time that you just keep on like going for the new shiny object, right? You know, like the woman in the red dress situation.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit, okay, let's go. But so, and I think it's like, you know, people need to talk to more customers as well rather than investors, and so that they get the proper feedback. It's not just like from friends and family that's like, yeah, that looks cool kind of thing, but like, did it really matter from them, or did it matter for the person who's about to buy? Sorry. I was like, oh.
Right. Who are you getting feedback from? Right. That's really important. And not, I think, you know, we have to come back to what is it that we, from, you know, like our goal, right? So that's our goal, is like having a clear goal is one of those flow triggers. So coming back to like, what is it that we want, need, and how do we want to feel? If like all the feedback is different from that, you know, what do we
misalignment
do? You know, like what do you have a hard
that's
choice
great
to
and
make.
Tangible. Yeah. And having that hard conversation too, that 15-minute hard conversation you don't want to have.
Yeah.
The right conversation to have.
Yeah. So like, you know, and what's really going to motivate, and the other thing I run into with entrepreneurs and high achievers is that a lot of times we get a thing in our head initially for the idea, but we don't necessarily have the intrinsic motivation that's going to carry us through to the end. So my clients, a lot of times they come to me, they're like, I have this idea that could make money. I have this idea and this, and what we have to do is kind of rewind, because there's a lot of good ideas, but what is the thing that your soul really, 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 really wants, right? It gets like really, really like juiced up, and like that is the motivation that's actually going to care. Because how many, you know, entrepreneurs or people who start businesses, they have this idea and it makes sense because other people have done it, or like it should make sense based on the data or whatever, but they're not really invested, like, and they don't have the deep motivation and the excitement that you're talking about at the beginning of like, yeah, I want to wake up every day and like do, you know, it's more like up here. So it's like if you were to get feedback, right? You launched this thing, you're going to get feedback from people, and it was different than what you're super, super, super passionate about. That's a tough choice. But if it's different, but if you got feedback and it was like, oh, well, this actually isn't something that I'm super passionate about. Like maybe I do need to pivot in the whole idea. So then you just go back into the creative cycle and start with the ideation. But yeah, it's
I just want to in that I think that speaks a lot to co-founders who have like between more than one to five
yeah.
co-founders, and it's like, okay, there's always going to be that one person that's going to be like super invested in it. They're just like, this is it, this is the thing, and then someone else might not have the same kind of motivation, and then finding that fit is really hard. To me, I think it's just like marriage. It's like
That
like
is so
it is.
funny because my co-author of my book, we were talking about how we were like a married couple, and I couldn't have done it without her. She's just as invested as me, and I think it's really hard to find that.
Yeah, yeah. And then if it's not the match, how do you have that conversation of like, hey,
Yeah.
I actually don't
Oof.
feel so great about this area, and that's why I'm not performing as well. And that's probably where some of the tension is, or something like that, like how to have. But I think this is really helpful, I think, for people to be like, oh shit, this isn't what I or need and want to feel every day. And it's like kind of like a wake up call to then
Yeah.
not be on a detour anymore. And I think especially with startups, they go really fast. They kind of
Yeah.
average have an 18-month runway. And so, if it's not working out, like don't waste other people's times and just have the conversation and have that open up conversation. Can we nerd out real quick about
Yeah.
neuroscience? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So it has to do with this camaraderie and collaboration. So I'm gonna get this totally wrong, but maybe you can fill in some of the blanks. With learning about body chemicals, I think every single high achiever really needs to understand what that looks like. And instead of seeing like, oh, just my energy, like the energy level, I think is like this top five, which is dopamine,
Mhm.
serotonin. Hold
Nail.
on.
Nope.
There's a few more, but anyways, vasopressin.
Norepinephrine.
Yeah. But like
Adrenaline.
vasopressin is so important. And vasopressin is like the high five moment of the bonding moment because you achieve something together. And
Mm.
it really brings people closer together. And it's like, how can I do that? And I hope like everyone's like, with everyone who I know, have I had that high five moment with that person, lately kind of thing? And did I fill my cup in that way? Because affection, appreciation, to feel love doesn't always have to be intimate. Love can be from your colleagues, and a certain kind of appreciation, and you feel like your cup is full because you're proud of the people that's around you, that's surrounding you, and all of that energy goes into the product and the work that you do that makes you stand out from the crowd. And this freaking market, so many there's so much stuff out there. You really got to stand out from the crowd. And so a lot of this high EQ stuff, I hope, for these body chemicals, if you can speak a little bit more to that of how to be a better person when you show up in any relationship, any partnership, whether that is, in business, whether that's at home, whether that's with a, investor, partner, or customer, or, whoever it is, but just like being able to fulfill your cup first, and it doesn't have to mean in a romantic way. It means that you can really perform better and they can perform better as a in a reciprocal manner, that they can take that energy from you and being to be like, wow, this is why I'm working with this person. This is why I wake up every day and I'm allowing and giving permission for this person to be my space.
Yeah, I think that's so beautiful. And like in
Oh.
a world where we just think about individuality, like we really are. And so much of my work is about the connection between ourselves and other people. And we really are connected in that way. And there's a thing called group flow. So, like if you're watching like a basketball team on the court, they're in flow. They're doing it together,
It's a
right?
great example. Yeah.
Yeah, they're in group flow. And so, all this stuff like applies to groups as well and to teams. And so, if you are I mean, there's a couple things that you're talking about. One of them is like filling your cup, right? So what is it? So you have to take the time, like even like outside of work, to really think about like, how do I set boundaries to make, I call them energizers, like to really like put my energizers in place. Like energizers could be anything that gives you energy, right? Even on the job, it's like, am I doing all the things that give me energy? You know, a lot of times if you are the entrepreneur, like smaller things can like be depleters, what I call depleters. So they can drain your energy. How can you delegate those things that are depleting your energy, right?
Yeah.
And how can you do more of the things that are energizing you? Even like taking a dance class of outside of like your job, right? Those things are going to give you energy. Setting boundaries about like when you can rest, what do you need? Like, you know, asking other people. I think especially women, like we're really bad at asking. And I'm reading like a few books right now about like so women a lot of times, like instead of actually just like asking for what they need, they'll just go about it in like a roundabout way of like complaining or, you know, just, you know, not really asking for exactly what they need. So that's another way that can actually energize you and allow you to fill your cup. And then, you know, working as a team, it's like, I think once you have that energy and you are not always depleted, you can really, like you said, show up for other people. And I find also that like having compassion for yourself, the more you grow compassion for yourself and give yourself time and space.
And owning up to mistakes too, right?
Yeah.
To communicate that and the frequency of it. Because, you know, there's one thing of having the boundaries, but then if like someone doesn't know what those boundaries are, they can't read your fucking mind. I always say like the biggest downfall of any relationship is creating assumptions about what like about the relationship. So just making an assumption, oh, like I always need to do the laundry or something like that. Well, you never like communicate, or like, you know, making an assumption about the other person, like they need me to always make them dinner or whatever. Well, maybe they don't. The art of
like,
negotiation.
You know?
Yeah.
But being really clear, like, let's talk about what we need. Let's talk about, am I making an assumption about, you know, what you're capable of or what you want from me? I think that's like the biggest downfall of any relationship at all.
100% personal or business, because even like in a business deal, it's just like, what do you bring to the table? What are you not comfortable with? What are, you know, all those expectations and alignments. I feel like we have to like create a war room or something. It's like this is how you negotiate.
Yes.
Facilitate
being really
it.
clear. Yeah. Being really clear. And it comes back to, you know, what do I need and what do I want and how do I want to feel, you know, like communicating to your employees, like, this is what I need from you, you know, not just like assuming, oh, well, they should know that they're supposed to be here every day from 9 to 5, you know, like, this is what I need. Like being really clear,
no one reads.
Or even about the culture, right? Like I want to create a culture that's like this, you know? I mean, a lot of people, all of us are coming from different cultures, you know, and it's so beautiful when we can have a discussion, you know, like my husband he used to work in elementary schools, and he would always, on like the first day, they would come to an agreement about what they were going to do, you know, and of course he has rules, but he makes it sound like like we're all agreeing on this, right?
This is when you
like
can go to the bathroom. This is
like
your
make
hallway
a
pass.
list, right? We make a
Yeah.
list about what we all agree on, and
I
that is
love that.
also another flow trigger is autonomy.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah. So what they found was that the researchers did research on different organizations that had a lot of flow in baked into their organization. And Montessori schools, they were one of the highest flow because students were able to choose the project. So Montessori is like structured so that students can choose like a project that's how they learn, is they get to choose what they're going to work on, right? So this autonomy within your organization of having like coming to that agreement, but then how can you give your people
Project
autonomy?
ownership. Yes, exactly. And it's like, how can they feel something that they can feel proud of and that they can
Yes.
lead and they can step up too? Because you want them to step up, or else
Yes,
that's going to be transactional leadership.
and they all have their own dreams, I mean, I think that's part of the downfall of like the culture that has been created from like working in factories, like going to
Yeah.
school, being told what to do. And so now a lot of people just don't know even what they want. Like they're just, and they
They
don't
can't
have
even
any,
answer the question.
that's where our motivation comes from, And so how can you have that conversation?
How about this, wrapping up in this way of what would your advice be with people who are so busy that these entrepreneurs, they're really busy and sometimes a lot of things slip. For example, they have a team of 10 and a bunch of partners and investors and customers, and which is still a lot for, they're not operating at a firm of 50 or 100 and not supported in that respect, because that's just not the cycle that they're at, or stage in the cycle that they're at yet. But and they're learning a lot of things on the fly and everything. There's a lot of mistakes happening, and the people is, when you're in business, you're in the business of people. So how would you, we've talked about boundaries, we've talked about but the advisory on how would you be able to communicate that a lot more frequently to bring up the safe space to say, hey, if this isn't working out for you, I want to know now. I don't think, but not waiting for it to like snowball, for it to, really bottle up, because in that kind of environment, you can't really take that chance. Every single day, it really costs you. There's hidden costs in everything that you're not doing. And especially if they're in a role, for example, amongst co-founders, let's say if they're like, hey, this isn't a priority right now, or, maybe it's not the best thing for us to do, but it has never been done before. But is the actual root, is that the symptom we're looking at? Or is the root of it is that they're actually just not comfortable with that task in general? And so, how to differentiate that. But it's not like a quarterly meeting or like a one-on-one kind of thing. Like, how can you, back to the relationship part, because it doesn't matter what any of the relationship, it's just a relationship. What is your advice to be able to nurture, and more tactical advice on how to be more frequent in building that, so that you can have these really hard conversations that doesn't feel hard, but they're necessary, because you have to do things that are necessary in order to be relentless to stay in the game.
Totally. Yeah. And so Stephen Kotler, he is one of the top researchers of flow right now. And so he talks about this as that feedback, right? So having as much feedback as possible. So a lot of times we will just do like a quarterly review or something like that, but having as much feedback as possible, like you say, is going to be able to have people be able to, and creating that atmosphere of, like, I mean, I am teaching again. So almost every day when I go into my classroom, I ask them, and I've like drilled it into them. I'm like, feedback goes both ways. So please tell me, what did I do that was good? What did I do that you don't like? Or, and I even asked them like, what about this assignment? Were you like, do you guys like that? They're like, no. So, and sometimes I'll listen, sometimes I won't, sometimes you can't really, but I'm just like, let me know how this is going for you all, and sometimes, you can set up like a anonymous Google form or something like that, where you're like, okay, tell me what I'm doing well, tell me what I need, what you want to happen, sort of. That's like
a great tip.
Sort of like a box,
like a suggestion box,
like they used to have, yeah,
at the grocery stores. Like,
but
we want this kind of milk.
You want to create an environment, and I'm like, I always telling my students this, like, I hopefully am creating an environment where you feel safe and you feel like you're like really wanting to learn and grow, right? So they know that it's like, yes, we're all like on this road for this one goal, but also like, you have your own goals. I want to support you. If they don't feel like there's a safe environment for them to ask, then they're just gonna shove it down. It's gonna come out as resentment in some other way, so
that, and then also feeding towards that culture of like dog eats dog, and then like the personal agendas and like the promotions that pushes other people out, but really those other people could have been just like restructured in a reorg if there was more transparency. I love
and how
that.
Can we create that culture? That's different. It's different than it has been in the past.
And the other way around too, it gives the leader, in effect, so the one who is facilitating everything, a way how to accelerate it.
I love feedback from my students and from my clients, because it's like invaluable. It really is. But we haven't sort of grown up in that culture, right? We've grown up in this culture of like, I'm the leader, you're going to do what I say, right? But no, it just makes it, if you want a company that's like happy and excited and motivated and is coming up with new ideas, like you have to foster that,
I love that. So the takeaway here is for the entrepreneur to think, one, how am I currently receiving feedback? One. Two, what is my style that I would like to do the whole feedback? Because it doesn't matter like what it is. If they're more of the, meeting kind of style, or they're more about like texting or slacking or whatever, it doesn't really matter. Whatever their communication style is, great. But then the frequency. What are they doing on the daily? If not them, their managers, and how that's being reported through. But like, who is talking to that person, that they have those multiple touch points, that they know that they're being taken care of and they're being heard. And then the next point of having an anonymous way that's saying, hey, I want to be able to say it this way, but you are saying it's not just like once in the blue moon. You are saying like, this is the place to go kind of thing. And really emphasizing that, so that people can feel like it's almost like an understanding of like, it's like mom and dad can't always be there. So we're gonna read what you want for dinner.
Yeah, right. It's not always gonna happen. It's not, I know you want cherry pie for dinner, but that's not, I know kind of best, like what's, but at the same time, like, I really want to know that my kid wants that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, I really want to know what my employees want out of this. Like, I want to know their dreams, like, I want to know, like, I really want to know, this is what I look for in my clients and my students, like, what are you most excited about? Because that's what you're going to bring to the company. Like, everybody has their individual like passions and what they're good at, right? And so as a leader, like, you want to know that, because that's that's your kind of like, those are your tools too. Like you want to get them as like jazzed as possible
Yeah,
about
if they
if it's relevant. I mean,
yeah,
if it's relevant somehow.
100%. If they like crunching numbers, but
Yeah.
they're in a role that is
Right.
crunching design, for example, like
Right.
having that conversation of like, oh no, if I say like I really love numbers, which is funny because people do. If they're like, I really love numbers, and they're able to bring
Yeah.
so much to the company
Yeah.
through that,
Yeah.
and you had no
Yeah.
idea because that
Yeah.
conversation wasn't happening, y'all just
Right.
fucked up.
Right. Yeah.
So much money on the table. This was great. Esther, thank you so much for sharing your wealth of knowledge, your experience, and having this exploratory conversation to be able to really intersect, this whole human connection stuff, the employee stuff, the whole entrepreneur side of it. Like, that was great ping pong.
I love
I
it.
love the energy
Let's
of it.
do more. Let's do more.
Do it. Okay. All right. High five.